My friend once told me this story, and it stuck with me ever since. It didn't happen to me, but the way he described it made me feel as if I had been there with him. He grew up in a mid-sized town called Brookdale, Illinois, a place where nothing extraordinary usually happened. Quiet neighborhoods, familiar faces at the grocery store, and the occasional Friday night high school football game. But one week, when his parents were overseas for work, he had to grow up faster than he ever thought possible. His parents had gone to Germany for a business trip. Time zones and bad connections made communication nearly impossible. The responsibility of the household fell squarely on him, a 19-year-old freshman just back from college for a short break, and his 15-year-old sister, Emily. At first, he told me, it felt almost fun. No parents around, we had the house to ourselves, Emily could sleep in late, I could order takeout whenever, and we didn't have anyone nagging us about chores. But that freedom only lasted about 2 days. One morning, while he was making coffee in the kitchen, Emily appeared pale and shaky in the doorway. She clutched her stomach, her eyes wide and uncertain. "What's wrong?" he asked, setting the mug down. She hesitated. I think something's wrong with me. It's my period, but it's way worse than usual." At first, he admitted he didn't know how to react. He wasn't used to conversations about periods, let alone emergencies related to them. But the look on Emily's face pushed aside his awkwardness. She wasn't just uncomfortable, she was scared. He grabbed a blanket and guided her to the couch. He brought her water, found some snacks, even turned on a silly Netflix show to distract her. For a while, he hoped it would pass. Maybe it was just a bad cramp day. But then she had to rush to the bathroom, again and again. Each time, the bleeding seemed heavier. "I started to panic a little," he admitted. "I didn't want to freak her out, but I could see she was pale and trembling. She kept saying it wasn't normal." The hours dragged on. He texted his parents, but the message didn't go through. He tried calling, but the line cut out. He was alone with the responsibility, and every decision weighed heavily on him. By the afternoon, Emily whispered, "I think I need to go to the hospital." He froze. Should he take her to the ER? What if he was overreacting? What if the doctors thought he was irresponsible for waiting too long? And what about their parents? How would they react if they found out he hadn't acted sooner? But then Emily's face twisted in pain, and she pressed her hands to her stomach, curling into herself. That was enough. He grabbed the car keys. Driving to Brookdale General Hospital felt surreal. The late afternoon sun was setting, the streets looked ordinary. Kids riding bikes, a couple walking their dog. But inside the car, everything was tense. Emily leaned against the window, clutching the blanket around her. At the ER, the smell of antiseptic hit him immediately. The waiting room was half full. An older man coughing, a young mother rocking her baby, a teenager with a sprained ankle. The receptionist looked up. "Reason for visit?" she asked. He glanced at Emily, who was blushing furiously, clearly embarrassed. He cleared his throat. She's experiencing very heavy menstrual bleeding. It seems worse than normal. She's in a lot of pain." The receptionist nodded briskly and handed him a clipboard. Within minutes, Emily was called back. Nurses took her vitals, asked questions, and gently explained the process. My friend said he tried to give her space, waiting outside when she needed privacy, but he stayed close enough so she wouldn't feel abandoned. The tests began. Blood work, ultrasound, questions about family medical history. Doctors mentioned the possibility of a bleeding disorder, maybe something genetic. The words sounded clinical, but the weight of them was heavy. She looked so small in that hospital bed. She's usually so energetic. She does ballet, she's always moving. But that night, she just lay there, exhausted, trying to be brave. While Emily rested, he finally managed to reach his parents through a shaky international call. His mom's voice cracked when she heard the news. His dad asked rapid questions. Which hospital? What tests? Which doctor? His friend promised he was handling it, though deep down, he felt terrified. By the time visiting hours ended, Emily was admitted for overnight observation. Doctors wanted to monitor her bleeding and run more detailed tests in the morning. He sat by her bed until a nurse gently told him he needed to get some rest. Back at the empty house, he stared at the ceiling, the silence pressing down on him. He realized this was the first time he'd ever truly been responsible for someone else's well-being. And it wasn't just about driving her to the hospital or signing paperwork. It was about listening, respecting her privacy, and stepping up even when he felt unprepared. "That night changed me," he admitted. "I walked into that hospital as a 19-year-old still figuring out college life. I walked out realizing that sometimes you don't get to choose when you grow up. Life just throws you into it."
The next morning, when he returned to Brookdale General, Emily was still in the pediatric wing. The pale hospital walls and the rhythmic beeping of monitors gave the place a heavy, unreal atmosphere. She looked better than the night before, less panicked, but she was still weak, her face tired, her movements slow. A nurse came in with a clipboard. "Good morning. The doctor will be in shortly to discuss the results. How are you feeling, Emily?" Emily shrugged, managing a faint smile. "A little better, just tired." My friend sat beside her bed, pretending to scroll on his phone, but in reality he was listening to every word. He felt out of place among the doctors and nurses, but he knew he had to be the bridge between Emily and their parents, who were still half a world away. When Dr. Patel, the hematologist, finally entered, she introduced herself warmly, but spoke with calm seriousness. "We've done some initial tests, and we're concerned there may be an underlying issue with blood clotting. Emily's labs show signs that her blood isn't clotting as efficiently as it should. This could explain the heavy bleeding." Emily frowned. "So it's not just a bad period?" "No," Dr. Patel said gently. "It may be something genetic, like a bleeding disorder. We'll need to run more specialized tests to know for sure." My friend described how the room suddenly felt smaller, as if the air had thickened. Emily stared at the blanket on her lap, and he could tell she was processing more than just medical jargon. She was imagining what this might mean for her life, for ballet, for school. After the doctor left, he leaned forward. "Hey, whatever happens, we'll figure this out. You're not alone in this." Emily gave him a quick glance, then looked away, embarrassed but comforted. It was one of those quiet sibling moments that said more than words. That afternoon, he managed another call with their parents. This time, the connection was clearer. His mom's voice trembled. "Is she okay? Did they say what's wrong?" He explained as best he could, stumbling over the medical terms, but trying to sound steady. His dad asked about the hospital, the doctors, the treatment plan. Through the phone, he could hear the guilt in their voices, being thousands of miles away while their daughter was in a hospital bed. "We're proud of you," his dad said suddenly. "You're handling this better than we could have hoped." Those words hit him harder than he expected. For the first time, he realized his parents truly saw him as an adult. Over the next 2 days, Emily underwent more tests. Some came back inconclusive, others pointed toward a mild clotting disorder. It wasn't life-threatening, but it meant she would need monitoring and adjustments to her lifestyle. Emily didn't cry, she didn't throw a fit. Instead, she asked questions. Will I still be able to dance? Will I need medicine forever? Can I still go on school trips? The doctors reassured her. With treatment and awareness, she could live a normal life. Ballet wasn't out of the question, though she'd need to take precautions. At home, when Emily was finally discharged, the house felt different. The freedom they'd once celebrated now carried weight. There were follow-up appointments scheduled, new routines to learn, medical terms to Google late at night. One evening, sitting in the living room, Emily curled up with a blanket and looked at him. "Thanks for, everything." He shrugged. "That's what brothers are for." She smirked. "Still, you didn't freak out too much." "Well, maybe a little." They both laughed, the tension easing. For the first time in days, it felt almost normal. When their parents returned from Germany, they brought hugs, questions, and a stack of apologies. But things had shifted. My friend told me he noticed it immediately. They didn't just see Emily as their little girl anymore, and they didn't see him as just a college kid. Both of them had proven something, to themselves and to their family. The final diagnosis came a week later, a mild form of von Willebrand disease, a common but often underdiagnosed bleeding disorder. It explained Emily's symptoms and gave the family a plan for moving forward. She took it better than any of us, he said. She just wanted to know what to do next. School, ballet, her friends. She wasn't going to let it stop her. And I walked away from all this realizing how fragile and strong people can be at the same time. Looking back, he told me the lesson was simple but powerful. Don't ignore symptoms. Don't be afraid to ask for help. And never underestimate the strength of someone younger than you think. His story wasn't about tragedy. It was about resilience, family, and the quiet moments of courage that show up when you least expect them. And whenever he tells it now, he adds one last line. I went from being just a brother to being someone my sister could count on. And honestly, that changed everything.